Now let's review the storage and block storage options. So this lesson moving forward, we're going to focus on the storage performance. So when you think about performance of your storage, so whether it's block or object storage or even file storage, you need to be familiar with all of the options that are available and the nature of those options. So within AWS, of course, for block storage, we have several options. We have, let's say, Elastic Block Storage Service, in which you can, or you have SSD general purpose volume. And those are based on SSDs, right? But they operate at a baseline performance of 3 different IOPS per gig, or 3 IOPS per gig. And this will give you about 300 IOPS, right? Some apps, they may work fine. Other applications, that might not be enough. So you also have the SSD provision IOPS. And those provisioned IOPS says that we can allocate both storage and certain IOPS for that volume. So if you do need, let's say, 100 gigs or much greater than that, or 300 maybe IOPS, you can go with provisioned IOPS, guaranteed that you can get the system performance for that volume. Now, for random I/O, SSDs are a great option, and they'll give you good performance for random I/Os. But for other applications that require throughput or sequential apps, and then you have the hard gigs. In that regard, you have throughput optimized and cold storage. And throughput optimized is a great option when you need a lot of, let's say, high throughput volume rather than I/O. In that regard, with the HDD, right, throughput optimized storage, you can get up to maybe 5 megabits per second. And you also have EC2 instant store volumes. Keep in mind that those, you have a number of options in there. Storage optimized compute instances are there. Many of those are based on SSDs, right? But they are ephemeral, right? The trade-off really is that they don't have any type of built-in systems, by meaning of being ephemeral, right? So you do get a very high, IOPS. In some cases, you go up to or beyond 300,000 IOPS with EC2 instance or volumes. So we also have file system storage. You can use the Elastic File System, EFS, and that gives you, for example, the ability to create volumes that is shared among multiple EC2 instances. So remember that with EBS, the block store, right, any one volume can only be attached to one instance at a time. But if you need that volume, for example, to be attached to multiple instances, then you can look to the EFS, Elastic File System. And then we have the object storage. And of course, the option there is the Amazon Simple Storage Service, right? And we'll take a look at a little later on what S3 can give us in terms of performance. So you also have archival storage. You can use Glacier, right? AWS Glacier. You can upload data directly to Glacier or use lifecycle roles to transition big data automatically from S3 to Amazon Glacier. So when you think about the performance, right? The writing data and then the retrieval of data itself. With S3, you have the ability to upload directly and then at the same time do synchronous download immediately, right? So you save data to S3 and then you can immediately take a look at it. With AWS Glacier, for example, that's archival storage. And that takes a little bit of time. So for example, if you save data to AWS Glacier, it takes about 3 to 5 hours to retrieve that data because you have to send a request in. And that's how really the difference between S3 and AWS Glacier, right? So S3 is synchronous and Glacier is asynchronous, right? So that's really the strategy that you can take as a solutions architect of how you want to deal with your storage options. So for example, what are the access patterns? How your application will access this data? Will it be write once, read many, or there'll be a lot of random I/O or sequential I/Os, for example? Or do you need to simply store the data for long periods of time and really archive it and maybe access it once a year? So this will help you to become familiar with all of those options and the nature of each option, that you can then determine as a solutions architect what would be the most performant data store, in a particular given scenario. So in this lesson, just wanted to cover the several storage options and then of course the performance of each of those options. So I hope this helps. If you have any questions, post in the discussion area. And with this, let's move to the next lesson.